All right. I'd like to start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Racha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is a response to Pastor Chuck Missler says the Edomites are Arabs. This is a video that Elder Pastor did yesterday. I was going to do this video yesterday, but I never got around to do it. But pretty much, when it comes to Esau, he pretty much say whatever the hell he wants to say, and people are just expected to swallow it down and just believe it because they said it, But when you do careful examination and research, and when you know the prophecies and the mysteries of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, you know that that's not the case, because all you have to do is just look at the origins of the Arab people, and you will find that if you just do a little bit of research, and even them, the so-called Arab people know who they are. Just do a little bit of biblical research, and you will find out that the so-called Arabs come from the line of Ishmael. Now, when you go here to Genesis 16 and 11, right, it says, "And the angel of Yahweh said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shalt call his name Ishmael, because Yahweh Bashem Yahushai hath heard thy affliction." Right? And when you look at the word Ishmael, right, the Hebrew word there is Yashemai Allah. He has heard of the power, right? And it gives you, what the meaning of it. It says the Most High will hear, or he has heard of the power. It says, son of Abraham and Sarah's handmaid Hagar, and the progenitor of the Arabian peoples. So, and that's a well-known fact among so-called Arabs, that they are from the line of Ishmael. They know that line goes back to Abraham through Ishmael. So just right there, that will dispel the myth that the Edomites are an Arabian or Arab people. All right. Now, the reason why this guy said that, and even when you go to the blue letter, to show you how the blue letter goes off also, Genesis 25:25, and the first came out red all over like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. This is the first time the name Esau is mentioned in the Bible. These were the twins of Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and Esau. One came out like a regular baby, which was Jacob, a man of color, brown-skinned baby. The other one came out red. The other one came out looking like a so-called white person, or what they would call an albinoism, or however they call that term. All right. And they called his name Esau. Now, when you break the word Esau down, you go to the Ben Yehudi, because you're not going to find it in the blue letter, because the blue letter goes off on what the name of Esau means, and they also go off of who the descendants of Esau are. All right, but when you go to the Ben Yehudi, you have to go to the Hebrew portion of it, because you have half of the book is in alphabetical order in English, and then it gives you Hebrew words, and then the other half is Hebrew words, and then they'll give you the English meaning. So when you go to the Hebrew portion of it, right, in the Ben Yehudi Hebrew English dictionary, the word is, you'll see the word Aishash with the I, Sha, and Sha. And when you look up the word Aishash, it means wasted away. All right. And that's what Esau's name was called. Aish or Aishash is wasted or wasted away, and the Y at the end makes it he. Wasted away is he. And this is why Isaac called him that, because he was wasted away. He didn't look like your regular brown-skinned babies, because he was not a brown-skinned baby. He was a so-called white-looking baby, so you could understand. So Aishashwa, like I said, you look up the word Aishash in the Hebrew portion of the Ben Yehudi, and it'll tell you that it means wasted away or something. Wasted away or wasted, something like that. So that's Aishash, wasted away. And the Y at the end, if it's not connected to the word, is he. Wasted away is he. And you see here it says Esau hairy. Esau does not mean hairy. All right. The word seer or sha'ir means hair. So these devils, they as much research as they can do, they still don't get it right in certain cases. Certain stuff they still can't get right. All right. It says, eldest son of Isaac and Rebekah and twin brother of Jacob sold the birthright for food when he was hungry, and the divine blessing went to Jacob. Yep. Then it says here, progenitor of the Arab peoples. But wait a minute, I thought the Ishmaelites were the progenitors or the fathers of the Arabian people. How is it that Esau is a progenitor of the Arab people? It's not. This is what you call deflection. And these devils do that because they know that if we can identify who the Edomites are, that's really who you have to keep your eye on, because they are the wicked. So that's, something known as deflection. Right here, deflection is a turning aside or off course. A turning aside or off course, deviation. See, the departure of an indicator or pointer from the zero reading on the scale of the instrument. So the zero reading scale on the instrument would be what? The Edomites are so-called white people. So what do? When they deflect, they'll say that they're the Arab people, that they're these people, they're anybody but who they really are, which are so-called white people. And not all so-called white people are Edomites. It depends on where their line goes back to. Because you have, among the nations, you have Edomites, which are East Indians, Ishmaelites, which are so-called Arab people. Then you have Hamites, which are so-called African people. You have some of them that have mingled with Esau too, and some of them look white. All right? And some of those white-looking people among those nations are those nations that just look like that. Then you have among Israel, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, you have some white-looking ones because their fathers, laid down with white women, so-called white women, which is not the mark of the beast. And they had children by those women, and they came out looking like the mother. Like in the case that we always use, Blake Griffin, the basketball player. His father was super dark, and the son, because his mother was a white-looking woman, he came out, kind of light, I believe he has kind of reddish kind of hair. He looks light, a lot lighter, but you can see he still looks like a Jake. But his son, which he had with a so-called white-looking woman, his son came out looking like a little white boy. But that little baby that looked like a white boy is really an Israelite. He just happened to look that way. And that's just one example out of many, so you can get an idea. Now, like I said, Esau say the Arabs are Esau, they're Edomites, and that's it. Don't question it, because we are the authority and we tell you what it is. So when you look up Edom, I was trying to find this yesterday because I knew I had read it somewhere, but I couldn't find it. So I had to keep searching and searching until I eventually found it. But this is from the Encyclopedia Britannica, and you put the name Edom, which I copied this and put it in the description box along with this video also. And we were going to read a little bit of this. It says, Edom, ancient land bordering ancient Israel in what is now southwestern Jordan, between the Dead Sea and the Gulf of Aqaba, right? And we see it right here. That's the map. You could click on the map, and it'll give you the area. Up here, this is Israel, Judea, right? Then you have down here Edom, and then you had Moab, Ammon. Today, the land of Edom comprises, Jordan. They call it Jordan today. But in ancient times, it was known as Edom. Before the Edomites lived there, you had a group of Hamites known as the Horites. The Horites go back to the word Har, which means mountain, because they were the original people that inhabited those lands. And then Esau conquered them and took over that portion of land. So the original inhabitants of the land, of this land, was really Hamites, but then the Edomites took over. All right. So keep that in mind. It says the Edomites probably occupied the area about the 13th century BCE. Though closely related to the Israelites, according to the Bible, they were descendants of Esau. They had frequent conflicts with them and were probably subject to them that at the time of the Israelite kingdom, 11th to the 10th century BCE. No, they were not probably. They were subject to them, according to the prophecy that Isaac said, that, he shall, he's going to be your head. This was in Genesis 27 chapter. And then, he's going to pretty much rule over you. And what happened was, during the time of the kings of Judah, Esau revolted from under the hand of Judah, according to the prophecy, and they set up kings among themselves. And that's when they started governing, themselves and ruling among themselves as kings, but they didn't take over the world as of yet. It wasn't until roughly about 100 years, well, actually more than 100 years later, about a good, say about roughly 500, 600 years later, they would come into power as the Greeks or the Macedonians. All right. And then from that point on, that's when Esau took over the world. That's when the wicked started to rule the world, or the earth was given into the hand of the wicked, and evil started to multiply in the earth. So it says Edom prospered because of its strategic location on the trade route between Arabia and the Mediterranean, and its copper industry at Ezion-Geber. And Ezion-Geber was a seaport down in the Gulf of Aqaba. All right, you had the Red Sea, right? Let's see, Red Sea, Gulf of Aqaba. And then you had here, well, let me see if I could get a better map. Okay, let's see if this one gives us a... So here you have the Red Sea down here, and it breaks up into two gulfs. This is the Gulf of Suez. This is where the Israelites, crossed, our forefathers crossed here into the Sinai Peninsula. This is a peninsula here. It's a land of water that's covered by... It's a land covered by three sides of water. That's a peninsula. And then these are a body of water covered in three sides by land. All right, so you have a gulf and a peninsula. This is the Gulf of Suez. This is the Gulf of Aqaba. Now, Ezion-Geber would be up here, because King Solomon had a navy here also in Ezion-Geber. You also had... This is the Great Sea, or the Mediterranean Sea. And then when you go further to the west, at the edge of the end of where the Mediterranean Sea is, you had Spain there. And that's where you had Tarshish. And King Solomon also had a navy in Tarshish. Okay, so right up here north of the Gulf of Aqaba, right in this area, this is Ezion-Geber. So that was a region where they were controlling. All right. And that land was fought between Israel and Esau, because they were going back and forth, because it was a very strategic place and it was good for trade. And remember, you had the trade routes that the elder from England brought out, the brother Yawachanan. You had two trade routes. You had the Via Maris, which is the view or way of the sea, and then you had the King's Highway. All right, and I'm not sure if these are trade routes, these red things here, but it was a strategic place to have, So it says, now this is the point that I want to. This is the main point. Edom and Moab were later conquered by the Nabateans. See. So the reason why you had the Nabateans in the land of Petra, as it was called later, right, is because they conquered the Edomites and the Moabites. That's the reason why the Nabateans were there. So to say that the Nabateans, which are an Arab people, and all you have to do is type in Nabateans, right? And this is how Esau does his fuckery, his slickery, by actually, well, they're in the land there, so they're Edomites. That's where the Edomites were at, so that's what they are. See, check this out. Even when you look at this is in Wikipedia. Matter of fact, let's open it up. It says, where the hell is it? Right. The Nabateans were an ancient Arab people who inhabited northern Arabia and the southern Levant. See? So they're telling you in Wikipedia that the Nabateans are Arabian people. They are so-called Arabs. They're Ishmaelites, so you could understand. It says their settlements most prominently the assumed capital of Rakhmu, present-day Petra Jordan, gave the name Nabatean, ancient Greek Nabatean, Romanized, to the Arabian borderland and stretched from the Euphrates to the Red Sea. And then it gives you the history of how they emerged. So pretty much the Nabateans, which are an Arabian people or Arab people, they conquered the Edomites and the Moabites. And they took over that land. So that's why Esau uses them and said, well, look, those are Edomites. And also Herod's father, Antipater, right? Antipater, the Idumean, right? Antipater, Idumean. Let's see if it. Let me see something. This is another connection. There's another connection that they mix the Ishmaelites and the Edomites together, because Antipater, which is an Idumean, which is the father of Herod and his brothers, Antipater married Cypros. Now, who was Cypros? Cypros was a Nabatean noblewoman. So she was a Nabatean or Ishmaelite that was of noble, like a noble family, a royal family, all right, which helped endear the Nabateans to him. See, their marriage helped bring about a close friendship between him and King Aretas, called by Josephus Aretas the Arabian, because they were Arabs, so-called Arabs, to whom Cypros was related. So this is another reason why they say that, the Nabateans are Edomites, because Antipater married into them. That don't mean shit. All right, so you see how the way that these devils they merge shit. They it's a thin line, and they cross it. Either way. So that's 2 points. So the Nabateans conquered Edom and Moab. So how can, if the Nabateans, and we just read just a little bit of research we did, that the Nabateans are Ishmaelites, they're so-called Arab people. So how can the Edomites be Arabs when the Nabateans conquered them? And the Nabateans are Ishmaelites. And we read in the scriptures that the Ishmaelites are the progenitors or the fathers of the Arabian people. So to say that the Edomites are Arabs is as ridiculous as saying as the Arab people that govern the Egypt today are the original Egyptians. You see? And this is the thing, when you're dealing with history, you have to find out what time periods the people that are living there were living there. Because if you was to say, well, because people are there, that means that they're the originators of it. No, because remember, there was a lot of conquering and a lot of removing of lands, and this is why the law forbids removing of land or land removal, because just for that purpose, because it's going to get mixed up, and the Lord gave to each nation, he gave them their portions of land for a reason. Let's go to Deuteronomy. This is an inheritance to these nations forever. Deuteronomy 32:8. When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance. What was their inheritance? Their lands. And eventually they had their, their customs and all of that. But their lands was the main part of the inheritance. When he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. Right, so he gave all the nations their lands, and he saved the best land for last, for the Israelites. All right, so when we go to Deuteronomy 19:14, it says, Thou shalt not remove thy neighbor's landmark, which they of old times have set in thine inheritance, which thou shalt inherit in the land that Yahweh Bashem Shai thy power giveth thee to possess it. And what did Esau do? He did the very exact opposite. He took the people out of the land, and put themselves up in there. What is that? Is that Job or is that Proverbs? No, it's Proverbs. Proverbs 22:28. Remove not the ancient landmark which thy fathers have set. And when you go to the 23rd chapter, it pretty much says the same thing. 23:10. Remove not the old landmark, and enter not into the fields of the fatherless. And what does Esau does? He does the exact opposite. Let's go to Psalms 49:11. It says, Their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. When they conquered and stole all these places, they called their lands after their own names, and they conquered the world. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. So to say, and then when you go back in history, right, just dealing with the land of Egypt, the people that are there today, which are the Ishmaelites, they conquered that region of land after 600 AD, during the time of the Crusades and the time when Islam was flourishing, in the earth. And then prior to them being there and conquering that land, you had the Ptolemaic dynasty, which are Edomites, so-called white people, that ruled that region at the time. So at that time, when you look at relics of the pharaohs, you're going to see white-looking pharaohs. Cleopatra herself was a so-called white woman, an Edomite, so you could understand. And they governed that for a period of time. All right? And then prior to the Ptolemies being in there, and prior to Alexander the Great, or the Greek, conquering Egypt, the original Egyptians were dark-skinned people. So it depends on what, because they're Hamites. The Hamitic people are so-called black people, not the ones in America. There's brown people also, and so it depends on what time period you go back to find out who were the original rulers of that land. So to call the Edomites Arab people is just as ridiculous as saying as the Ishmaelites, or the people that are in Egypt today, are the original Egyptians or the original Mizraimites. They're not. They conquered that land and they set themselves up, just like the Edomites conquered the land and set themselves up. But the original people of the land of Ham, or the land of Egypt, there are so-called dark brown skinned people, which today were moved southward into Sudan. Them big, tall, Hamites, big purple, black Hamites down there in Sudan. Those are the original Egyptians, Philistines, and all of that. So to say that the Arab people are Edomites is just as ridiculous as saying as those Ishmaelite people that are in the land of Egypt today, ruling that land, are the original Egyptians, and they're not. But today people will say, well, those are the original Egyptians. No, they're not. The original Egyptians were dark-skinned people. And even when you look at in the Zondervan's Bible Dictionary, under Ham, it even tells you that right here. Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of 8 persons to live through the flood, he, meaning Ham, became the progenitor, or the father, of the dark races, not the Negroes. But it goes on to name them. But the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. So to say that the Edomites are Arab people is just as ridiculous as saying as that those Arab people that govern or that control the land of Egypt today are the original Egyptians, and they're not. All right, you go back to Genesis 10, which the so-called scholars or the scholars call the Table of Nations, and you go down to Genesis 10 and 6, and the sons of Ham. Ham goes back to the Hebrew word chum, which means hot. Okay, so he had 4 sons, Cush and Mizraim and Put and Canaan. Cush, or the Cushites, are the Ethiopian people, right? And Mizraim are the so-called Egyptian people. Put are the so-called northern Africans, for lack of better words. That's Put, and Canaan are the southern Africans. So you could understand the original, peoples of that land, Hamites. And the sons of Cush, Seba, and Havilah. Now Havilah, which is the land of Arabia today, was inhabited at one time by Hamites. Just like you go up to, where Babylon was at, the original Babylonians, going all the way back to Nimrod, Semiramis, Tammuz, they were Cushite or Ethiopian people. But then when you go up into the history, the Assyrians took them over at a particular point, and that's why the Neo-Babylonian Empire was ruled. It was called the Babylonian Empire or Neo-Babylonian Empire, but it was ruled by Assyrian kings, because they had conquered them by that time. But the land of Havilah, which is Arabia, that is governed today by the Arab people who conquered that land. Let's go to Genesis 25. And right, 25:16. These are the sons of Ishmael, which are the so-called Arabs, and these are their names by their towns and by their castles, 12 princes according to their nations. And these are the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years. And he gave up the spirit and died, and was gathered unto his people. And they dwelt from Havilah unto Shur. Okay, that is before Egypt, because that's where Havilah is right there, just where you see like around the area of Egypt, in that area, unto Shur. Shur is Assyria. That is before Egypt, as thou goest towards Assyria. So that whole land of, that desert land there you see, that's Havilah. That belongs to Ishmael. They took it from Ham. And just like the land of Canaan, which became our land, we took from them because that was a curse that the Lord put upon them. All right, so that southern part of that desert, down, further down here, that's Havilah. That's why most of it is desert, and that's where Ishmael lives. Down in that area. See what they call Arabia. And then up here, from Egypt, all of this fertile land, what they call the Fertile Crescent, the Levant, that's our land. That all that great land right there. That's why they call it the Fertile Crescent, because it's very fertile. And this is the land that was held by the Canaanites or the Southern Africans. And eventually, the Lord allowed our forefathers to take over all of this land. So there's a lot of history. So these devils are very devious, in how they present things. And then the thing is, Jake is not going to question, because look at the way he looks. Oh, he looks like an authority. He's a white man. Oh, then whatever he says is true. No, that's not the case. So this guy Chuck Missler is misled, and he's gonna get, if he's still alive, he's gonna get hit with a missile or two. All right, the Edomites are not Arabs. You know, and if you can't see that from this lesson, then I don't know what to tell you. You need to move on somewhere. You know, they got some booty shaking videos that might pique your interest. You know. So with that, you know, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. To the next time I say shalom. Thank the water for tuning in.